Addiction is a family disease. It affects everybody. If I were to sit here and say my parents didn't and my sister didn't have traumas, I created a
Of
toxic
course.
situation,
Of
right?
course
I
you did.
created that situation.
Yeah.
So
And
everybody has
everyone
something to
took
work
on a
on.
role. Everyone took on
A
a
hundred
role and
percent.
started wearing hats because
A
you
hundred percent.
were creating chaos in the system.
Yes.
And the boat was pitching and heaving. And so people had to come up with, some people had to play the warden, some people had to play the nurse, the caretaker, the coach, some people had to be the lost child and kind of recede. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Super excited to have with me today Dimitri, who does so many cool things. Welcome, Dimitri, to the show. I'll give a quick little intro for everyone listening. We met on Instagram, and I love, first off, if you're not following Dimitri, please follow Dimitri. What is your handle, by the way?
At Dimitri Kourepis, my full name.
Perfect. Because he does all kinds of crazy things, from like UFC training to runs an amazing sober living program for men in Montreal called Linden House, right? Also does sober coaching as well, which we'll talk about. But the reason that Dimitri's on the show is that he is a baby. I can say that as an here. And he's doing amazing things. And as we met offline, I love that you're so unabashed or brazen about what you are doing, where you want to go. And I love that you have massive, big, hairy, audacious goals. And Dimitri's going to share a bit about how the hell did he get sober at 20, right? I got that right? And how the hell do you stay sober? And obviously he's sending the elevator back down through Linden Recovery, as well as his coaching. And I just thought it would be a great topic to help parents give some hope and realize that this freaking young sober thing is actually possible. So welcome to the show.
For sure. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited, dude.
Yeah. When you hear like some of those, because there's so many, and again, understandable. It can be rough to go to an 18-year-old, right, and be like, you're an addict, right, and you can never drink again. And obviously that's not how you approach your clients, nor do I approach my clients that way. But there is a lot of almost like I find tiptoeing around offering young people recovery. It almost feels like which again, not hating on harm reduction, big up to, that's a great beginning, right, for someone to start thinking about changing their life. But there is some myths, I think, or there is some anticipatory anxiety about people being like, can we even talk to this young or 18, 20, 19-year-old about recovery? And we have to almost like be adjacent. So how do you dispel some of those myths?
Well, I also think it's kind of like a social stigma in general when we talk about alcoholism and addiction. Like when there's, let's say, like families gossiping about each other, like, oh my God, he has a drinking problem. He could be alcoholic, So I feel like even with young people, it's kind of a whole social stigma, right? I wouldn't pertain it to one group of people, but when we're working with specifically younger guys or younger women, whatever, I think it's really important to not shy away from that, because I'm very much in the ideology is if you baby an addict, you're going to bury an addict. And Brendan Novak, who is a great advocate for recovery, is what he says all the time. And I approach it in the same way with young guys that I would with adults. Like you said, harm reduction is one thing, but if I'm dealing with a full blown, like for example, my first line of cocaine, I was 14 years old, right? I was a full-blown benzone junkie by 18, right? So
yeah, there's no harm reduction in opiates or cocaine.
No. There's no marijuana maintenance plan. Someone who's overdosing on Percocets every day, right?
Right.
So I would go head on with it. I wouldn't change. I don't change my approach, right?
Yeah,
it's the same approach, really.
And when people meet you, because we talked a little bit about this offline. And again, I love learning from anyone, and I love being the dumbest person in the room. And I think there's a lot of ego and gatekeepers and things like that. When you meet people and you tell them you have 5 years, what often is a lot of people's reaction, given that you are 25?
How old are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's this idea that like, it has the AA old timers and like, I spilled more than you drank and that whole ideology. And it's like, ask me about my story first. You know what I mean? Ask me what I've been through first, right? Like, it's people are so quick to judge with
Hmm.
age
Hmm.
that they just have this whole preconceived notion before you even open your mouth,
Hmm.
before I even speak or even say my story.
Hmm.
Everyone thinks they have me figured out.
Hmm.
I never have
Hmm.
anybody figured out.
Hmm.
When I work with clients, like it'll take me a solid, because most of them are full of shit in the beginning, but
Hmm.
it'll take me a good solid 2 to 3 weeks to really get the gears on this person. And people will kind of try and tell me my story and judge a book by its cover, right?
Hmm.
That's like the
Hmm.
purest way to say it.
Hmm.
Um, so like that's it's funny. I always get the same answer. Like, dude, how old are
Yeah.
you? You
Well,
know?
I mean, the person who's saying, I spilled more than you drank and and all this. I mean, that's first off, that's war story. And where's that
Yeah.
getting you, by the way? No one
Yeah.
gets a
Yeah.
trophy for, I always say, pain is pain or trauma is trauma. And again, it's not like we're trying to stack more trauma,
Yeah.
and the good
Exactly.
news is that from a neurobiology standpoint, right, you have a bit more neuroplasticity, right, than a person who has been drinking
Yeah.
for 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, I've been to so many treatment, programs, and I'm the biggest fan of always offering hope and finding hope, and people
For
can, of
sure.
course, grow from where they are.
For sure.
However, this is a brain disease, people, right? And it's progressive and it's
Yeah.
chronic, right? And so
Yeah.
if you're bathing in, drinking and drugging for 30,
Hmm.
40, 50 years, you
Yeah.
haven't had really a lot of health span. And so I
Yeah.
always say to people, it's really about health span more so than it's about
Yeah.
lifespan,
Hmm.
because I'd rather have a great health span, and
Yeah.
live to 75 than live to
Yeah.
90, but have had a horrible, healthy experience throughout that. So what is something that you find, again, is a myth that you're often dispelling, either in the industry or with
Hmm.
families or just with clients themselves, when it
Yeah.
comes to this idea of, can I get sober young? Is it,
Yeah.
and then can I stay sober?
Hmm.
Right. And of course, we all think of relapse as a potential for
Hmm.
prolapse, right? An
Hmm.
opportunity
Hmm.
for change. And that maybe doesn't have to be your journey or in
Yeah.
everyone's journey, but it's often can be a common, right, part of someone's
Hmm.
recovery journey. So what are
Yeah.
some of the biggest myths and how do you dispel them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest one is I don't really care how old you are. You know what I mean? There's people who stayed sober. I have somebody in my home group who's got sober at 15, but her
Mhm.
life she has 42 years of sobriety. But
Mhm.
from 0 to 15, her parents were chronic alcoholics,
Mhm.
crazy mental health
Mhm.
disorders in her
Mhm.
family, and has
Mhm.
had unreal story, unreal
Sure.
childhood that I
Sure.
didn't have. And she has 42 years of sobriety. And myself,
For her.
I got introduced with an interventionist and a coach when I was younger, 17, 18 years old, and I relapsed twice. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Relapse doesn't have to be a part of recovery. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It doesn't
I
have
agree.
to be. A
I
lot of my
completely agree.
mentors, one and done, and even
Mhm.
people that I've worked with so far, the way that they are coming up with years of sobriety, haven't relapsed, right?
Mhm.
At least that I know
Mhm.
of.
Mhm.
But like I don't care how old someone is, or what someone has gone through in their life. Sobriety, I'm like the whole naive, big picture, as you said, kind
Mhm.
of guy.
Mhm.
Like sobriety is possible for everybody.
Of
It just
course.
depends on if you're gonna put in the work to do it or not, right?
100%.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that naive, by the way. I mean, I think when you look at,
Optimistic, maybe
right,
optimistic.
or I would call it abundant mindset, which I have every
Yeah,
day. Like everything's
yeah,
an opportunity.
yeah.
It's funny. I was actually sitting a couple of years ago at Granite Recovery Centers in New Hampshire, and Bruce Alexander was talking. He's the guy who did the whole Rat Park thing, and I'll
Hmm.
make the story really fast. But he basically said, you know, when he built Rat Park, it was really just a garage, right? And so these
Hmm.
rats, it was kind of to play handball against the BF Skinner model of, right, you hit a lever and you get cocaine, or you
Hmm.
get
Hmm. Yeah,
hit a
yeah,
lever,
yeah.
you get food. Well, anyone's going to be an addict in that model. So he built
Hmm.
this garage, which was the antithesis, to say, in theory, look, there's a nightclub because you have rats, copulating with other female rats, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have a gym in essence because they're working the garage. They have jobs, they have a sense of community, they have a sense of
Hmm.
belonging. And so
Hmm.
one of the things I think is important, even when people are saying relapse has to be, and again, I'm not going to ever say it does or doesn't. I lean more toward it doesn't. I lean more towards, let's look at the best recovery plan and not be lazy and respect this opponent. But
Mhm.
really, if you think of that idea of Rat Park, I
Mhm.
always say to people, you know, are you laughing? Are you
Mhm.
doing something of purpose? Are you
Definitely.
connecting? Are you
Mhm.
working? Is there some higher power? And he was funny. He basically said, and I give credit to Granite because they had him come in. He was like, look, I'm not telling you to like run out of this place right now. But he said, if we were all basically on a boat right now, working for like Greenpeace or something and trying to save, I don't know, some sea turtles, we would have really good recovery rates there too,
Yeah.
because everyone would have a role. We'd all
Yeah.
have to participate in making the food. We'd all have to participate
Yeah, for
in
sure.
the work, so you did that and you're giving that back through, of
Mhm.
course, your coaching and of course through
Yeah.
structured sober living. So tell me
Yeah, yeah.
one you come up with across, which it happens all the time. I have a young adult who gives me their relapse prevention plan. And again, I'm a big fan of it. Doesn't have to be one size fits all or, 90 and 98 in terms of 12 step,
Yeah,
but
sure.
there
Sure.
does have to be a thick plan versus a thin plan. It can't be
For
Swiss
sure.
cheese.
For sure.
How do you help young adults individuate in their own recovery while still being an OG in your own recovery and knowing,
Mhm.
as I know, I always say I'm not going to remove my brain and throw out
Mhm.
my, freaking 25 years of experience here. So how
Yeah.
do you help support that person toward in something that feels good, but also realize it has to be sound?
Yeah, definitely. Like I actually started working with a new client yesterday, 24 years old, pretty much close to my age. And basically the way that we started is like the word earlier used was purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really where that's probably the most fundamental important thing that I found in my own recovery. Like I remember, who am I? I was talking about this. I go, take the drugs and alcohol away from me now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remove the drugs and alcohol completely. What's left is me. What does me like? What if you
Mm-hmm.
ask me if I like apples and oranges in early recovery? Maybe apple, sometimes orange. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
know what I liked. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So to find a purpose and to really start to understand what I like and what works for me is what was really, really, really important. For me, my purpose, I found my purpose, right? This is my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I started working with this guy yesterday. It was our first session, so I didn't like drop the gates of hell on him. But I kind of told him, like, listen, now that the drugs and alcohol is gone, what's left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we build a structure where you're keeping busy on one end and you're working on some sort of personal development at the same time. So what that looks like basically is he checks in with me morning and night. I have him journal and write 3 things he's grateful for and make his bed in the morning, which
Mm-hmm.
is the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
only did 2 things perfectly in the past 5 years. I didn't use drugs and alcohol, and I made my fucking bed every morning, dude,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
without fail. That
Mm-hmm.
small win, I will
Sure.
preach this till the day that I die.
Sure.
That small win in the morning of making my
Sure.
bed is makes monumental change. And then
Mm-hmm.
write 3 things I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. That is
Mm-hmm.
already huge. That is already a psychic shift, early
100%.
morning,
Mhm,
ready to take the day on now. And then I come
mhm,
back home and I have a made bed and everything is my room's clean. Like I
mhm.
always tell them, like I could tell by how your mental state is by the condition of your bedroom.
100%. So without throwing shade here, but there are some programs in our space or industry that don't require that, and there are folks who do that
Crazy.
for them.
Crazy.
So
Crazy.
you would have a hard time with that.
I'll throw shade for you.
Mhm, mhm. So
But
yeah.
structure, man, structure is huge.
Mhm,
Structure,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And behind the structure is now how does, what's left? And it's taken me years to find out where I am today. And I feel like obviously we're human beings. We're always changing. We're
of
always
course.
evolving. We're always shifting. There's always things I might like right now that I might not like in, you
Mhm,
know, 20 years from now, 5 years from now,
mhm,
and 20 minutes from now. Who knows?
mhm,
Like
mhm,
I hated sparkling water my entire life. I love it now. I don't know
mhm,
why, you know.
mhm.
Um,
What's your
but
favorite?
I like the lemon La Croix. La
Okay.
Crux, I guess Americans would call it, but La
Yeah.
Croix.
Yeah, I should
Yeah.
say in case people don't know, uh,
Yeah.
we're talking to a Canadian here.
Yeah.
So, that's
Montreal.
funny.
Montreal.
Montreal, I love it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, do you like poutine? Side note,
Love it. Love
you
it.
love it?
Love
I
it.
I
Grew up on it,
I
man.
well, I was gonna say, I mean, it's kind of to me like, and I love barbecue. I every time we go down south, we like run and get a huge rack of ribs, and we're like, we're gonna eat
Yeah.
this every day. And then by like day
Yeah.
3, we're like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Oh my God, I'm gonna
Uh,
die.
yeah, I feel that I like poutine. I feel it's
It's
the
the
same
best.
way though. I'm kind of
I
like,
worked at a hot dog. I worked at a hot dog and poutine shop. There's a chain
mm,
of restaurants called La Belle Province here, obviously
mm-hmm,
the beautiful province, the great
mm-hmm,
province, whatever.
mm-hmm,
Just like steamed hot dogs, poutines.
mm,
I worked there, man. I got so
yum,
fat there.
yum.
Yeah, it was the best.
It's probably good hangover food if you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, funny enough, I worked at the one and it was pretty close to a strip
I'm
club. So
sure.
then the
I'm
people would
sure.
come in the next morning
Of
from the strip
course.
club all strung
Of
out. Yeah, man.
course. Of
Yeah, it was
course. It's
good.
like the greasier, the better, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Since this is a podcast for parents, I'd
Yeah.
love to hear, because you're seeing, as I'm seeing, of course, because I coach parents every single day, I'm seeing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of do's and don'ts. I'm seeing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
healthy and
Yeah.
unhealthy patterns, right?
Sure.
And if
Sure.
you are open to it, could you share
Absolutely.
a few things that your family did that really was helpful and spot on, and maybe some things not so much? And
Yeah.
just to be clear, folks, just want to put a little PSA, I say this all the time, families listening, you didn't cause your loved one's addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot
Mm-hmm.
cure it. You cannot fix it. However, you can cope, you can support, you can help, you can, motivate and invite your loved one to change. Hence the
Mm-hmm.
reason I built the 4 Peaks Parents Program, to create a culture of change that agitates a change process where everyone has to get on board and get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
speak a little bit to your parents.
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like the biggest thing that I could say is, like you said, parents, you guys didn't cause the addiction, but you can be part of the solution, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
I work with families so often, and when they want to take control of the
mm-hmm,
situation is where most of the problems arise, because
mm-hmm,
the best advice I could give is what my parents did. Leave it in the hands of professionals that do this every day. You know what I mean? We know what we're doing here.
mm-hmm,
When I had a parent one time, I'll never forget it, and I'll never forget this, when he said, "Fix my son,"
mm-hmm,
and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, your son is not a Honda Civic.
mm-hmm,
We can't
mm-hmm,
just fix him.
mm-hmm,
That's not how this works."
mm-hmm.
And I think what my parents did was, number one, never gave up on me.
That's
Never.
awesome.
Never. There
Yeah.
was never once that my parents were, they kicked me out the house, stuff like
Mm-hmm,
that. But
mm-hmm,
as far as if I said I need help or whatever, or the situation got too dire, they never left me for dead.
mm-hmm,
Ever,
mm-hmm,
ever,
mm-hmm,
ever, ever, ever.
mm-hmm,
So they did everything in their power to help me
mm-hmm,
where they could. And they left it in the hands of professionals, you
mm-hmm,
know. Um, and it was the best thing they could have ever done. You know what I mean? I like, you know, I say this when I speak either, and I guess I am speaking now, but when I get asked to public speak or in AA meetings or whatever, and I say I don't have the uh, normal drug addict, abuse, bipolar parents story. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't drinking out of a paper bag. I didn't get
mm-hmm,
beat as a kid. I never got
mm-hmm,
molested. I never anything like that
mm-hmm,
happened to me. I
mm-hmm,
lived in a two-parent household. Had
mm-hmm,
everything I ever wanted. My parents loved each other, still do love each
mm-hmm,
other, still
mm-hmm,
married 30 years later. Yet I still became a drug addict and alcoholic somehow,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right? So I feel like a lot of parents blame themselves. They'd
mm-hmm,
be like, "Where do we go wrong? What did
mm-hmm.
I? If only I could have done this differently." And I'm here
Sure.
to say that
Sure.
that's all self doubt, nonsense,
Mm-hmm,
bullshit. It's all
mm-hmm,
bullshit,
mm-hmm,
because I had everything, and I still became a drug addict and alcoholic,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So that's
Well, I think your story though is more common. I shouldn't say than because you do know it's as common. The idea of what you just said, the down and out, right? Person
hmm
that is just stacking trauma and has had nothing but adversity. That's
hmm
less and less the person sitting in the rooms. The
yeah.
other thing I want to really punctuate, thank you first off for sharing all that and being, transparent, open.
hmm
I hope everyone can hear what you said, which was that they never gave up and they did kick you out of the house. And that's hard for a lot of the families I work with. And I always say,
hmm
we can't be black or white here. We have to live in the
hmm
gray,
hmm
because to be a great CEO, to be a great leader, to be a great coach, to be a great father, a mother, husband, parent requires situational awareness. And I say this all
Mhm.
the time. Every
Mhm.
situation requires
Mhm.
a different tact and tone, a different strategy, a different approach. And we can hold space for this person to experience adversity and couch surf while
Mhm.
never giving up on them. And a lot of my
Mhm.
families, parents in general, they have a hard time because they think they're in opposition and they're not. I
Mhm.
always say we can
Mhm.
hold two opposing things in the same hand. I have a family that recently let their loved one come. He showed up. They're like, you could shower, we'll make you lunch, you could chill for a little bit, and then you got to go, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Because they know what that feels like, what that looks like, and what that does, and how that person will undo, right,
Mhm.
this system. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're not saying we love you and we're willing to endorse treatment and recovery,
Yep.
and
Yep.
we'll take you right now, right, to a sober
Yep.
living or to inpatient or resi or whatever you need. So there's a way to do that, people. And if people
Yep.
listening are like, his parents are cruel or mean, I hope that you would shift your thinking. And if anyone wants to jump on a discovery call with me, or of course yourself, but of course
Mhm.
parents are going to come to me, and of course a young
Yep.
adult. If there's a young adult
Mhm.
listening who's contemplating sobriety, please reach out, of course, to Dimitri. But
Yep.
if you're a parent and you're like, I could never do that, and I'm just going to
Mhm.
keep doubling and tripling down on what
Mhm.
I'm doing that's clearly not working and making
Yep.
everybody kind of more enmeshed and sicker,
Mhm.
please reach out, because there is a way. And your parents were able to, again, never give up, continue to love on you while
Mhm.
holding space and boundaries for you to experience natural consequences, and then eventually have to turn
Mhm.
to some professionals. And it doesn't mean that they sat by and let you hit rock bottom, because we know rock bottom doesn't turn out that well, right?
Mhm.
They,
Mhm.
I'm sure, were supportive in getting you connected to
Mhm.
some of these
Mhm.
resources.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it's like it's funny. Like I word it a little bit differently. I call it bottom lining, where I bring
Hmm.
the bottom
Sure.
line up
Up. Yeah.
to the client, right?
Yeah.
Or to the IP or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And that's basically what they did, because if we don't suffer consequences, then how are we going to get sober if we're not having
Hmm.
any consequences, right? And I think it turns I'm someone, I keep it very simple. I try to keep it in bite sizes and very straightforward, right? It's
Hmm.
like, if there's no motivation for change, why would I ever change,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And if we could offer consequences and bottom lining the the client or to the young adult, whoever, then we're actually winning here, because you
100%.
need to do a
Yeah.
bit of a stress test, and you need to turn the pressure cooker on for something to actually, to trigger the reaction for something to change, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I like what you said. You hold space for that, because it's not giving up. It's you're stacking weight on his
Yes.
shoulders to be
Yes.
able to let him shed it off, right? To
And
offer the
there's
solution to shed it off.
ways and techniques that I offer my families. I coach every one of my families learns motivational interviewing. They learn things
Hmm.
like match pace lead, which is coming alongside someone, not just
Hmm.
trying to fix my kid and lead, but also not
Crazy.
abdicate responsibility to somebody else. There's
Yeah.
all these techniques that I provide my families in the program, because we can come alongside that person and go, huh, that looks like your shoulders are carrying a lot of weight. Or have you noticed, do you realize, I'm a big fan of observations. And I always say to my families, like, we have to be the memory, because it's so easy when you're in a brain disease, an active,
Hmm.
right, brain disease, looking
Hmm.
solely to not feel pain vis-a-vis the thing
Hmm.
continually
Hmm.
imprisoning you.
Hmm.
So this is not a rational brain. So it's really important to help them say, do you realize, have you noticed, right, that you haven't really talked about, your sponsor in 3 weeks? Or
Hmm.
do you realize you're like sleeping a lot? Or have you noticed you're isolating again? Or do you
Hmm.
realize, like, we're actually having a
Interesting.
really amazing, healthy conversation?
Hmm.
It's
I like
really
that.
helpful to try to kind of give data points, because that person has a very concrete, kind of immovable
Hmm.
perspective of themselves
Hmm.
and sense, and they don't see that we know it's a progressive disease and that they're going to
Hmm.
continue, right, to
Yeah.
go deeper and deeper into this, right, toilet bowl of
Hmm.
spiritual and psychological and emotional and financial consequences. And so I love that idea of bringing the bottom up. That's so smart. That's
Hmm.
really smart. What advice do you have for the families that are either at Linden or you're currently coaching? What are some
Hmm.
things, again, that you're like, oof, this is really not the healthiest habit pattern dynamic, etc.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced my fair share of unhealthy habits within the family's side. We had a resident come, and like, so the way my program works, where most program works, is the second the client hits the facility, there's a 2 week blackout period to
Mm-hmm.
let the client have a bit of
Sure,
space, but
sure,
also let the family have a bit
sure,
of a breather as
sure,
well,
sure,
right?
sure,
He's in a safe environment
sure.
that
Yeah,
he's okay. You could call
sure,
me, but you
sure,
can't call him,
sure.
right? And I think, listen, for families, it's extremely difficult letting their like sending off their child to a
Mm-hmm.
random place with random people
Mm-hmm.
that they don't know,
Who eats
and
poutine?
it puts in exactly,
How do you say it? I'm saying it
it's
wrong. How do you say it?
puts in,
Poutine?
yeah,
Okay.
puts
I
in.
I probably killed that. I
It's
probably
okay.
killed
Say poutine. Poutine's fine.
it. You're like, please
It's
stop.
it's all
Please
good.
stop.
No, 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 no. You're good.
You're
You're good.
like
You're good.
you're talking about rock bottom. There's like
But
you're like
as soon as
here's
you
the
hear
shovel.
poutine, you know it's this person's a foreign person.
Well, it's funny.
But
We've been to Montreal so many times, and it is funny. By like the third day, I'm like, "Ooh, bechamel," and then my wife's like, "Stop." She's like, "Just stop."
that's
Just
funny.
just
Yeah,
stop.
our French is a little different
Yeah.
though. Our French is
No, of
like
course.
much more hillbilly French than it is like proper French. Like
Sure,
it's
sure.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I was saying, when a client hits 2 week blackout period, complete separation, and the parents, like, we had a mom who would just keep sending Amazon packages
Of
over
course.
and
Of
over and
course.
over and over, and we're
Of
like,
course.
stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he is okay.
Right.
you know like, it's that maternal instinct. I can never tell a mother to not love her son, obviously, right?
Well,
It's
I'll have a
that's
different word than maternal. I would call that a meshed.
okay.
Yeah, and that's an umbilical cord that needs to be cut, right? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So you're actually, when we start using drugs and alcohol, we stop maturing emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a 39-year-old man who started using seriously at 15 years old would have the emotional mental state of a
100%.
15-year-old boy. And I've seen with men that come into my program, because I've even coached men who are older. I do mostly younger men. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like my specialty, but I
Mm-hmm.
have all kinds of coaching clients of men who are older that want to feel young
Mm-hmm.
again or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? So working with this guy in my house, in my sober living facility, and can I call my mom every day, right?
Mm.
Every day. And she
Hmm.
craves
Of
that, right?
Of
Mom
course.
wants that.
Of
Mom loves
course.
that, right? And
Of course.
she took it as, when we kind of displayed this is an unhealthy behavior, now we're the problem,
Of course.
right?
Of course.
So the best thing, I always circle back to the same thing. It's like, let the professionals do what they can. Because listen, addiction is a family disease. It affects everybody. If I were to
Mm-hmm.
sit here and say my parents didn't, and my sister didn't have traumas, I created a
Of
toxic
course.
situation,
Of
right?
course
I
you did.
created that situation.
Yeah.
So
And
everybody has something to
took
work
on a
on.
role. Everyone took on
A
a
hundred
role and
percent.
started wearing hats because
A
you
hundred percent.
were creating chaos in the system,
Yes.
and the boat was pitching and heaving. And so people had to come up with, some people had to play the
Yeah.
warden, some people had to play the nurse, the
Yeah.
caretaker, the
Yeah.
coach, some people had to be the lost child and kind
For
of
sure.
recede. You said you
Yeah.
have what's your siblings?
I have an older sister.
So her needs weren't focused on because the
Hundred
family was
percent.
triaging with your freaking
Oh
sprained
yeah.
ankle slash, a gunshot wound and
Spray that
everything
color.
else. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
COVID and were pregnant and everything, right? And
Yeah.
and so the hospital is gonna like the staff. And so one activity that is great that we used to do at Mountainside actually, and when I was the family wellness director there, is where you have a bunch of people who are standing around one person in the middle and they're stiff as a board and they start falling. And the person is falling and everyone is kind of pushing them kind of back to the middle and they're kind of just
Hmm.
kind of falling.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun, right? But then
Hmm.
you tap someone on the shoulder and they step away. So let's say if you start with 9 people, then it goes to 8, then it goes to
Hmm.
7, then it goes to 6, then it goes to 5.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
pretty quickly, the person in the middle who's just like free falling and it's fun and they're kind of rolling around starts being like, oh shit, there's
Yeah,
less
I'm actually gonna
hands.
fall here. Yeah.
I'm actually going to fall. So instead of them being this like loosey goosey thing, you could see them start falling in the direction where the hands are. Then
Mm-hmm.
eventually there's two people left, and the person is just falling back and forth. They're not falling left or right anymore because they don't want to fall. And it's such a great metaphor for how
Mm-hmm.
addiction is a family illness, because
100%.
they will keep falling toward where the hands are.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who step away, it would be amazing when we used to do this in our workshop. And shout out to Bruce Decker, who came up with this. I don't know if he came up with this, but he definitely was a big part
Mm-hmm.
of using this exercise. The people who would step away would sometimes be in conflict and have anxiety around stepping away in a role play. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, I was like, you just met this person like 3 seconds ago, and you're like, I can't leave Cindy. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
like,
She's gonna fall.
right, she's gonna fall.
Yeah.
And now you times that by 10 million because this is your child, right? So that mom is irrationally loving her child.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
made
for
such a good
sure.
point, which is the age of onset is the
Mm-hmm.
pause button in that client's development. So he's perpetually
Mm-hmm.
stuck at 15, and the
Mm-hmm.
mother is perpetually stuck in a parenting dynamic of 15.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so through the work you're doing, through the work, of course, I'm doing with the families across 90 days, I mean, I'm like, people, we got our running shoes on because we got to go there. And where we got to
Yeah.
go is a
Yeah.
healthier place. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm helping them rewrite their dynamics in real time and creating a new
Yeah.
normal that's so
Mm-hmm.
foreign. And their brains will go through the fight or flight in a way because they're excited and titillated by, ooh, what is this new thing where I could actually let go? I could actually go on
Mm-hmm.
vacation while they're in a controlled environment. I could
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
get a night's sleep. But there's also a part of them that is also in conflict with that
Of course.
because
Of
they've been
course.
doing this for freaking months or
For
years,
sure. For
right?
years, most likely
So it's
years, right?
so the family work, right, is so important. So important.
Yeah, whenever we do like an intervention, right? Let's say like I have a couple business partners with Linden, and we do interventions, crisis interventions, and 90% of the work is with the family.
Mhm,
Like the client's the easy part. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like
mhm,
95% of the time,
mhm,
interventions usually go well and the client goes.
mhm.
But getting the family members on
Sure,
board and getting the
sure,
pre-intervention done, the letters written, everybody
sure.
on,
Yeah,
if he doesn't go to treatment, he's on the
yeah,
street. Are we
yeah,
all in agreement
yeah,
here?
yeah,
Right. And getting
yeah.
mom, especially, is the toughest one to crack.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
So it's
With males, with
like
males, with males.
with males. Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
for sure, for
With
sure.
men.
Yeah, big up
So
to
it's
moms though. There's some amazing.
oh,
I
for
know I
sure.
know you weren't throwing shade on moms,
For, no, no,
but
no, no,
you're
no.
no, but you are correct. There are a lot of man babies, unfortunately, because
Yeah.
those dynamics got velcroed and frozen, and now again we have that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that delayed onset, right?
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
that delayed maturation didn't happen. There's a
Really.
delay in
For
their development, right? They're
mm-hmm.
frozen, and the
Mm-hmm.
family's back there frozen with them. And so
Yeah.
what you're doing with that 2-week thing is brilliant. You're putting a crowbar between the family and that
Have to.
person,
Have
popping them
to.
off and allowing them to actually, just like you said, have a break. I mean, it cracks me up when, having worked wilderness therapy, inpatient, everything, it cracks me up when I say to families, they're like, okay, what do we do? How do we support this? I'm like, go on vacation. And they
Yeah.
think, they're like, look at me like I'm insane. They're like, we're not
Yeah.
leaving. I'm like, they're in the program we used to, which is why I know Montreal so well, was in Saranac Lake in the
Yeah.
Adirondacks. So I'm like, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, or inpatient. It's like they're in a
Yeah.
controlled environment. And if you can't go
Yeah.
on vacation now, right, and
Yeah.
add some wax and do some self-care and sharpen that saw, like
Yeah.
you ain't gonna be
Yeah.
able to make it,
I
So
will always encourage parents to go get external help for their own things. I
yes,
think like there's like when we talk about purely addiction, right? When we're talking about a drug addict, alcoholic.
right.
I My belief and what I've seen is I love talk therapy, but it is not everything for addiction
Oh, I
alcoholics.
100%.
So talk therapy is not, it has its
Hmm.
own place and it opens boxes that maybe coaching and sober living for facilities won't open. But I think purely for addiction, the addict or the alcoholic is not as beneficial as, let's say, a 12-step model or any kind of,
Hmm. Hmm.
physical coaching, whatever, right? Whatever
Experiential.
the
You
avenue.
need experiential and somatic,
But I will
Yeah.
always recommend parents
Hmm.
to go to talk therapy. that for sure I'll always
Mhm.
recommend. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because for that side of things, or
Mhm.
even to go like Al-Anon or support groups,
Sure.
right? Like that's like basically what we do also in Linden is we have like a family mentorship program. So what we'll do is if we'll have a client, a senior resident who's been here for a while and the family has, gone through the whole process with him already, and we get a new client in, that I will make sure that it's okay with both parties that they get connected somehow,
Sure. Sure.
right? And because I
Because
think it's super, super
you need
important.
that. Yeah.
You need not like just as a drug addict, alcoholic needs another like it could be beneficial for another alcoholic to
100%.
listen, share stories like, oh, this guy gets me. It's just as important for the family side to feel the same way, right?
100%.
So
That
that's kind
that's
of
why
we've implemented that as well.
that's why I
So
love the Four Peaks Parents Program, and of course I do. A lot of families opt for the individual model because of they want more high touches and they want more individualized attention from me. But
yeah,
there is a group model, and it's powerful because each one teach one, and like you said, it
yeah,
immediately breaks any sense of shame or stigma that like I'm the only one and I'm the
no,
weirdo, and
terminal uniqueness.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I use that terminal uniqueness.
yeah.
You're not special, homie.
All
That
right,
is what it
right.
is.
Or another bozo on the bus, right? I mean, and that the thing I love about the program I built is that it gives people, the parents, videos to watch, a workbook to work, and then of course they get me for 2 sessions a week. So Al-Anon, Coda, and anything is great.
Yeah,
What
Coda for
sometimes
sure.
happens is that there is a continual discussion of the same story. And
Mhm,
because there isn't cross talking, which is awesome, I'm a big
mhm,
fan, of course, of 12 step. Um, but sometimes the families show up, rinse and repeat, right?
mhm,
Discharge,
mhm.
right? Rinse and repeat. So it is
Yeah,
really awesome, like you said, when you can pair a family with someone who can really guide them and be a
mhm.
Sherpa
Yeah,
or has been there, done that. That's awesome.
yeah. Like how many
Yeah,
people you see going to AA meetings, sit in the back, and then you just leave right after the meeting, right?
sure,
You could do that in Al-Anon or Coda as
sure,
well.
sure.
What's the
Punched in,
difference? But
punched out.
so
Yeah.
we kind of not forcefully, but we strongly suggest you take this woman's call, right? Or take this father's call, right? We
Mhm.
strongly suggest it. Can't
Mhm.
force anybody to do anything.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think with enough persuasion, then we could get the
Yeah.
person there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. So if someone is listening to this and they're
Yeah.
a young adult, and again, it doesn't have to be a young adult, but they're like, Dimitri's a cool dude. He knows how to say poutine correctly, unlike Thomas. And he does some UFC fighting, which, by the
Hmm.
way, I want to come up. I want to tour Linden and then I want to train. And
Do
you'll
some
be,
training. Let's do it.
no, not the sparring per se, because I'm not a sparrer, but
That's okay.
you'll kick my ass, I'll kick your ass, surprisingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck on your Spartan, by the way. That's super awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, man. It's gonna be crazy.
it's amazing. When I first did mine, I was like, I'm not going to flip this tractor trailer tire. Like, there's no way. I'll
Yeah.
just
There's
hit the
nowhere.
DQ, which is like 20 burpees. Sure. And
Yeah.
then just the adrenaline's going. I was just like, whoop, whoop. Like,
Yeah.
you got to get low. Got to get low, though. So you
Dude,
don't
it's
hurt
gonna be
your back.
crazy.
It's
It's gonna be crazy.
all low, low. So if someone's like, hey, I want to possibly work with him as a sober coach or
Yeah,
potentially
man.
learn more about Linden, how can they do that?
You can reach my website, kourepis My phone number's there. There's a big blue button says call now. My
Mhm.
phone number's on there. My Instagram handle at Dimitri Kourepis. Shoot me a DM, anything like that. I'm really easy to get a hold of. I'm not. You don't got to jump through hoops to get to talk to me. I'm a pretty
Mhm.
open book, so it's
Mhm.
easy to find me. Not hard.
I, from the moment I met you, I love your energy. I love, you
Likewise,
are like a
likewise.
beacon of like light, hope. Let's go.
Appreciate it.
Let's F and do it. And
Likewise.
it's really refreshing because I agree that, there are some programs that I find swing it too hard in the other direction where they're trying to
Hmm.
sell all rainbows and sprinkles around
Nah.
recovery, and that's a little too much. But I understand what they're trying to do because addicts do need to get high, and I say this all the time, just not with drugs, with
Yeah, yeah,
mountain biking, with skiing, with ropes courses, with whatever, with the sense of purpose. So I understand they're trying to titillate those dopamine hits. I get that, but
sure.
sometimes they swing it too hard, and I feel like
Hmm.
you do such a good job of offering hope just by living and breathing alone, right? Is
Hmm.
giving people an
Hmm.
example. You're also not a god. I hate to tell you. So yeah, damn it. But you do a really nice job of, again, inspiring people, challenging people, keeping it 100 at the same time. And I think that's why we connect. And I thank you so much for being on this pod. And I just want to say,
pleasure, man.
Yeah, you're so great. And please, folks, check out Dimitri on IG, as well as Lyndon, and also the coaching that he talked about. I will have your links in the descriptions on all the platforms. And any parent, I always end with this, any parent right now who is living an emotional roller coaster where every day you walk in and you're not sure what the hell you're walking into, whether your child is isolating because of depression, anxiety, whether your loved one is in your face and exhibiting all kinds of mood dysregulation, or there's potential concerns about drinking, drugging, please go to Four Peaks Parents. There's a free freaking newsletter you can sign up for. There is so many opportunities to work with me on an individual group level. There's a free freaking discovery call link where we can explore whether the program's right for you and whether or not it makes sense to make a change. There is a cost of inaction. So I hope today is the day you show some courage, parents. All right. Thank you so much, Dimitri.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I had a great time, dude.
Yeah.